Hello and welcome to another optics trade review. I have the Holosun 507C X2 right outside here today, and in this short review I'm going to take a look at its features. Holosun is a young company and they're slowly becoming one of the most renowned and influential red outside manufacturers in the world. Their headquarters are in China, and even though all their products are made in China, they can be compared with Japanese and European products in terms of quality. They're known to offer some innovative solutions in the field of red outsides. They have various illumination colors at disposal: green, gold, and red. Some of their dots feature solar cells on the housing, and some feature titanium housings, and so on. And they're also known for their confusing names, which feature a lot of letters, a lot of numbers that we try to explain the meaning of in our reviews, debates, and so on. Let us move on to the 507C series. Now, this is by no means a new series. The first generation models were already introduced, I think, in 2018. Then the second generation followed last year at the beginning of 2020, and the third generation also last year in 2020, but towards the end of the year. Now, we've received a ton of questions as to why Holosun chose to release this third generation models so quickly after the second, considering that the second generation models brought about useful and handy features. Let us take a look at what was happening with this series through time. Now, the form factor has been the same since the beginning, but a lot has been going on with the buttons. The first generation had small buttons for illumination control. These were placed horizontally. Then the Generation 2 models had bigger buttons. They were placed vertically, and they were much more intuitive to use, easier to click. Their position was simpler to memorize. Now, the third generation models have the same buttons, the same placement, and the same size as the first generation models. So we're back at the beginning. I was wondering why they did that, because myself and I think others prefer the button placement of the second generation models. But it is widely known that 3G sued Holosun for patent infringement in 2020, and this is perhaps the reason why they had to change the button pattern to how it was on the first generation. This is probably the only logical explanation, as the placement and the size was handier on the second generation models. So what was happening with the battery compartment? The first generation had it on the bottom, so to access it, the user had to remove the dot from the firearm in order to change the battery. And once put back, the side had to be re-zeroed if the supplied fixed mount was used, or any other fixed mounts for that matter. The Generation 2 already had the button compartment, the battery compartment on the side. This makes the replacement of the battery a much easier process. Re-zeroing is also avoided, but because there is less space here, Holosun had to go for a different battery standard. They use CR1632 instead of the CR2032. And with the third generation, no changes have been made regarding the battery compartment, so it has the same battery compartment as the second generation models. Another feature that only the third generation models offer, so basically the only step forward in this series, has to do with the button lockout mode. Now, this side features solar or auto mode, manual mode, and button lockout mode. So it has three modes. I'll explain them in detail later. But basically in the manual mode, you can now choose the desired illumination setting and then move to the manual mode, to the button lockout mode, by holding the plus button for 3 seconds. And then while you're in that mode, you cannot make changes to the illumination by pressing the buttons. This is especially useful in hectic situations, or in situations where a lot of movement is involved, such as IPSC shooting, where you quickly bump it against something and now you can accidentally change the illumination while you're in the button lockout mode. So this is a pretty useful thing to have. And these are the only notable differences. So basically they have to do with the positioning and the size of the buttons, and in the presence of the lockout mode. The other features are of the X2 models are identical or completely the same as on the V2 models. Let's take a look at the sight and how it looks. So it is an open reflex type of sight, as I said. It is mostly used on handguns, even though Holosun has in 2020 come up with even smaller sights, which are even more suitable for pistols. But this one, I would say, it can be used on both pistols and rifles with a Picatinny rail on top, since it comes with a fixed mount for the Picatinny standard. It is 45 millimeters long, 28 millimeters wide, 30 millimeters height, and with the adapter, the height is increased by a few millimeters. It weighs 42 grams without the adapter, 69 grams with it. And even though it is a compact red dot, it is not as compact as some red dots made by Noblex, Shield, Vortex, and others. If you take a look, for example, Noblex Sight C, it is twice as light at 22 grams. It is, however, much more robust than other typical open reflex sights. The frame is much thicker and naturally much more durable. The lens is of standard size at 23 millimeters of width and 17 millimeters of height. A lot of questions regarding the footprint of this sight have also been asked. So it features the same footprint as 3Gcon RMR sights. The standard is not as common as the one found on Dr. Noblex sights, but I do have to point out that it has been gaining in popularity in the last few years. We can find it on, several Swamp Fox sites, on Vector Optic sites, and so on. And some renowned European manufacturers have recognized the potential in this field and now offer an adapter for this footprint. So this is basically how the adapter is designed for this footprint. 2 pins, holes for screws, and that's basically it. It is made out of CNC milled 7075 aluminum alloy. This is a really strong alloy, so you can expect a lot of durability from this one. And now we've got to the part where I have to explain the confusing letters and numbers. But now, after a few years, it has gotten less confusing, as it is explained in many places on the web. In 2 or 3 years ago, this wasn't the case, but now it's getting easier. So the numbers, the first number always suggests the reticle. So the ones starting with 4 have only a central dot, whereas the ones starting with 5 have a switchable reticle. This one has 3 reticles, a 2 MOA central dot, a circle dot, and a 32 MOA circle. So 3 reticles to choose from, and based on the shooting situation and your preferences. So it is not an elite model, meaning that it comes with red illumination and doesn't have a titanium housing. The letter C suggests that it comes with a solar cell on top, so it features an automatic mode, also referred to as solar mode. In this mode, basically the intensity of the dot is regulated based on the ambient lighting. If you press the plus button, then you go into manual mode, where you can choose from 12 illumination intensity settings, 2 of which are night vision device compatible, and the strongest can be used in strong daytime brightness. Then again, if you hold the plus button for 3 seconds, you go into button lockout mode, which I already explained earlier. So in the manual mode, you just choose the desired setting and then move to the lockout mode, where it will be locked, and you will not be able to change it by pressing the buttons. You will have to hold the plus button again to get back to solar, auto mode, and so on. Then we have the adjustment screws, but before I get to that part, I have to open the box and take out the tool which is used to rotate the screws. So it's of course in the box, really convenient and really simple to use too. So you can hear that the screws are clicking, meaning that you do not need any additional tools for zeroing. The clicks produced are crisp, and even though they move stiffly, I mean that in a positive way, because you can actually feel each click. Clicks are 1 MOA, so you can expect 50 on 50 meters of distance, you can expect a centimeter and a half of point of impact movement for each click. A nice touch here on the sides, we have drain holes, so if you're using this one in the rain, the water won't be able to accumulate inside here. You'll always see the reticle as the water will pour out on the sides, preventing you from seeing a bad definition of the dot, or from not seeing it at all. Holosun promises 50,000 hours of battery life on a mid setting. The lens is tilted. This is not an error. This is explained in the booklet here, also on their website under frequently asked questions. So basically, the beam projected by the diode can reflect from the lens to the user's eye regardless of the position of the eye in front of the lens. Not an error as some people think, but this is a crucial thing to have on a red dot sight. It is IP67 certified, granting complete protection against dust and protection up to 1 meter of submersion in water for half an hour. 1x magnification, easy to use with both eyes open, a little bit of blue tint, especially on the sides, but optically this sight is much different from the second generation models. I already explained the illumination and the switchable reticle, so let's go to the shake awake function. If you leave the dot stationary, it will turn off to preserve battery life, and then when you move it, it will power back on in an instant. The timer can be set, I think 10 minutes, 1 hour, 12 hours, and you can also disable the shake awake function if you wish to do so, but it is useful in preserving the battery life. We all know that we often forget to turn off the battery and then it depletes quicker than we want it to. The price is around 430 euros. The accessories that come with it, I already shown you the two, which is pretty useful for adjusting the screws and for fixing the dot on the adapter or elsewhere. Then we have 2 sets of screws. We also get a lens cloth right here and booklet with some useful information about using the red dot sight, mounting it, zeroing it, setting the illumination, and so on. And of course, the adapter suitable for a 3G-Con RMR footprint and used to mount on a Picatinny platform. It is of the fixed type. The warranty is 5 years on the material, 3 years on the electronics. Now, at the end of this review, I want to go through some advantages and disadvantages of this device. I would say that the button lockout mode is a welcome change because in that mode you can change the illumination setting by accident, and it is sure to come in handy in hectic situations and in shooting situations where you move a lot, such as IPSC and so on. Then we have 12 illumination intensity settings to choose from for all lighting conditions. You can also benefit from the solar cell in auto mode. It can be powered by the sun, so this is a really welcome thing to have. Then we have the durable, strong CNC milled 7075 aluminum alloy, and drain holes and features such as this one, also the 3G-Con RMR footprint, compatibility with other adapters on the market, and so on. What I think that some people might not like is the size of this open reflex sight. But if you find this one large, you should check out their 507K red dot sights, as they're really smaller and even more suitable for a pistol. 2 MOA again, central dot is too small for some people, for some pistol users. Again, I would like to direct those to the 407K side, which has a 6 MOA central dot. And I would say that the buttons really, so the horizontal placement of the buttons and the buttons that are again small, I really like the positioning and the size of the buttons on the second generation It was much more intuitive, easier to click, and so on. But we have to understand that probably Holosun had a quarrel with Trigicon, and that is perhaps the reason why they had to go back to the old positioning and size. If you value durability and advanced features when it comes to open reflex sights, this is currently one of the best choices still, even with the button placement and the size, which is the same as on the first generation. I would say that you should definitely take a look at this one if you value to have the button lockout mode. So if you use the pistol in situations that involve a lot of movement. Thank you for watching this review. If you found it useful, leave a like, subscribe. If you have any questions, drop them below. Check out our other videos on Holosun devices, and see you next time. Take care, goodbye.